This is the fun part. We are gonna roll out cinnamon buns, which who doesn't like cinnamon buns? So Marissa, let's get to it.
All right. So we let it shape for a half hour, rest, not shape. And now we're going to get to the part where we roll it out. And as always, you need tapioca flour because it will stick if you don't use it. So I'm going to use quite a bit of tapioca flour. I generally actually use a pastry mat, which on my old counter in my farmhouse works great, but this will also work well.
I don't have one. That'll do it.
So I just like to kind of spread it out to the size that I expect to roll my cinnamon roll dough out. And then we have our rolling pin. I also like to give that a dusting and then just kind of start to roll it out. And you can see with this, even though it is a bit sticky, it's also very elasticy and rolls out really well.
I'm gonna feel it here. So it really does feel like a normal dough. Quite nice. It's very, like you said, spongy.
Yeah.
But it's gonna hold its shape, and that's the key when it comes to doing anything that you're wanting to roll or make a shape like a regular bread. You know, like Marissa told us right from the beginning, this is not your normal bread. This is not, like, don't expect it's going to taste exactly like regular sourdough bread, but it's still fantastic. It's just different. Not bad, just different.
And honestly, with this dough, it's actually going, you'll see at the end, this is going to look very similar to what you would expect of a cinnamon roll if you were eating it the glutinous kind.
That's awesome.
And it tastes delicious.
That's the whole point.
Yeah.
You know, if we wouldn't be doing this if it didn't taste great, and you can expect to have results that people are going to be wowed with. Like, you don't have to be gluten-free to enjoy this.
Right.
I know my family's going to enjoy this tonight.
So this is kind of how I have rolled it out. Some people like it thicker, some people like it thinner. I'm trying to get a dozen, or if I want to get fancy, I do a baker's dozen. Mm-hmm. So this is how I roll it out. And then we I'm just going to do a very simple, basic cinnamon roll. I'm not going to get fancy. We also don't like ours overly sweet. So if you want more filling, do it. Do what works for you, what you like. But this is just what I'm going to do. So I'm actually going to pour the butter directly on. And then I just I like using my hands. If you're weirded out by that, use whatever works for you. But I just get in there and kind of spread it around. And I forgot to do my cinnamon, so...
Do you want me to do that part?
Sure.
Do you want it mixed right in here, or is that your process?
Yeah, just mix it right in there, and then
I'm going to guess what the recipe said. And again, a personal preference, right? 4 hands are better than 2. There we go. All right.
All right. So now I just kind of sprinkle it around. This is actually our favorite Christmas morning breakfast. I make it the night before, and then I just put it in the fridge, not the freezer, and let it chill overnight. And that is actually one of the options that is in the recipe that you can see, and you can choose to do that as well. Okay. So then I flip it at the long side of it. And now what I like to do is just sort of pinch it down a little bit, and then I slowly start turning it. And again, you can see this is not falling apart.
That's awesome.
Before I started using sourdough, I would make cinnamon buns, and honestly, they would like crack. And this is a yeast recipe that I was using, and they would fall apart, and I'd pinch them back together. Whereas this, I'm just rolling it out, and it works beautifully.
Does it ever? That's fantastic. I was not expecting it to be so nice. Wow.
So then my trick that a baker told me was to use dental floss. So you go underneath, and I eyeball it. You can take a knife and, make your measured slices, but I just do this. You cross it.
Beautiful.
And then it comes apart. See how neatly it does it? And again. Just do that all the way along. I like it because it just kind of gives it a neat cut and there's no
pulling, no tension, no...
Unless you do what I just did there, and then you have your little messy.
It really does do a nice, smooth cut, though.
Yeah.
I've learned something today, or well, more than one thing, that's for sure.
And I feel like in my measuring, I'm cutting these a little large, which just means that we will enjoy
More decadent
some
dessert.
jumbo cinnamon rolls.
The tapioca flour, you don't worry about it, like it'll just absorb right into the
Right, so
mix.
the nice thing about tapioca flour is it doesn't dry out your dough the same way that if you used rice flour would. It just kind of, you can use a lot of tapioca flour
with no
before
adverse
it
effects.
changes the texture or the consistency
That's awesome.
of your dough. And it just kind of, that's maybe a little excessive and you can brush it off if you want. But honestly, your filling is going to
Totally, with all the caramel we're going to
caramelize
put in there. Yeah. Here,
So
I'll
now we
help.
have our buttered pan. Thank you.
There you go.
And then we have our caramel sauce that we just pour in the bottom.
Add your nuts, add raisins, whatever you like in your cinnamon rolls. But this
Right.
sauce, I think, is going to be the bomb. It looks awesome.
So as I said, this is our favorite Christmas breakfast. Technically, I think cinnamon buns should be a dessert,
I hear ya.
but Christmas.
Yeah, that's right.
So then we just sort of put them in. Sometimes as they rise, they will start to touch each other. So I like to have them a little bit far apart, but if you want them to be really tight together, you can do that as well.
We can fit those two in another pan, or if you, whatever you
Yeah,
think.
I think we can actually
That
fit
would
them
work.
all.
Fantastic.
That's probably, we'll
Yeah.
put this one
Or
in.
maybe
another
would that one tighten? Or is
Yeah,
it,
let's.
if we make a mess.
Let's make them cozy.
Yeah.
There we go. So now they're ready to have a final rise, and then we'll bake them in a couple of hours.
When you final rise them, do you put something on it to keep
I
the
do.
draft
Right.
off?
Yes. I usually actually use saran wrap.
Okay.
You could also use a cloth or a lid, but I just usually tuck some saran wrap around it just to keep the moisture, to keep them from drying out.
So we'll put them in a proofing bag. Get them. It doesn't matter where you final proof them.
I
warm or
always like to
cooler.
keep them in a cooler area. And like I said before, if you want to do it overnight, you can pop them in the fridge. You are going to get a more sour taste to it.
More fermentation.
If you like that, great. Or it's just based on what works for you for your timing. And you can wait for a few hours, or you can pop it in the fridge and do it overnight.
And that's great if you are planning for Christmas morning. You know, moms often want to have a little break on Christmas morning. You sort of want there to be a time for you, but fresh baked cinnamon buns. So doing it in the fridge, if you don't mind that sour taste, go for it. And how do these freeze after they've been cooked?
With all of our gluten-free sourdough, they all freeze really well. So you can just pop them in, thaw them later, and
do a little rewarm if you wanted to.
If you want to, and they're good to go.
It's always about options. All right, let's get this into a proofing bag.
All right.